And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live, episode number 26. And today we are talking about nice guys and 10 reasons why you are a nice guy who disgusts women, and a little bit about what you can do about that. Now, listen, this thing about nice guys comes up all the time. Of course, it's a perennial in this space. It's a perennial when we're talking about dating and the modern dating landscape and everything else. And it's certainly something that I cover extensively in my course, which is called CAD Academy. I always get this wrong. Charisma and Dating Academy, which is going to be relaunched for enrollment on the 1st of December for 5 days. You can enroll for 5 days on the 1st of December. But this whole thing about being a nice guy, it's certainly something that I cover in that course, and it's something that I cover a lot on this channel, because fundamentally I am a nice guy. I'm a really, really, really nice guy, okay? And I'm sure my mum would say that. If my mum's watching, please come into the chat and attest to the fact that I'm a nice guy. But I am. I'm a really nice guy, and it's not sort of like, it's nothing to be ashamed of, right? Because we're all, well, hopefully most of us watching this, I can't say everybody, but hopefully most people watching this are fundamentally decent people, right? And we've been conditioned in a certain way in order to act in a certain way, okay? In society, we've been taught to be nice. Ryan Sullivan says, hola, Ryan. Thank you for joining the stream. Yeah, you know, we've been taught to act in a certain way. We've been taught to be nice in society, and in particular, to be nice to the women that we date. And after all, I mean, that doesn't seem like such a terrible thing, does it? That seems like, you know, in human terms, a decent thing to be nice. And also, it kind of feels like it makes sense that if you want to get close to somebody, if you want to become intimate with somebody, then you are nice to that person, because surely, you know, we're brought up on this idea of reciprocation. So surely if I'm nice to that person is likely to be nice to me in return. And of course, what the classic nice guy thinks is if I behave in a certain way towards her, then she's going to reward that behavior with intimacy, with a date, or with, you know, making out, or with sex, okay? And that, of course, is the big mistake. And this is a mistake in terms of our dating strategy, but it's also, quite rightly, something that women will also call out, because there's this whole concept of like, well, I thought he was a nice guy, and then it turned out he wasn't such a nice guy. He just wanted to use me, and all of that kind of stuff. And so, you know, they call it out. You can kind of see why, but to be honest, the mistake is with us in the first place, because we shouldn't be behaving in that manner. Now, I want to talk about this in particular because, as I say, I'm fundamentally a nice guy. I certainly used to be a nice guy. I'm not sure what my girlfriends and ex-girlfriends would say about it now, but I certainly used to be a very nice guy. And, you know, as a result, I got really burned by enacting those nice guy behaviors. And I learned over the course of many years and many bitter experiences to act slightly differently. That doesn't mean going around and just being a complete jerk. It doesn't mean going around and being a complete arsehole. It doesn't mean burning things down and rioting like in the streets and all of that kind of thing. You can still be a civilized human being. It doesn't mean actively going out to harm other people. In fact, you absolutely should not do that, guys watching at home. But it does mean that you should start to put yourself first. And it does mean that you want to, when you're interacting in the dating environment, which, let's remember, is a very competitive and challenging place these days, you need to be putting yourself first, and you need to be seen to be putting yourself first. Because if you don't, then there is a good likelihood you're just going to get kicked to the curb. You can support the stream on Streamlabs, by the way. I'm not monetized on YouTube, but if you do want to drop me a tip, go over to that link on Streamlabs. You can drop in like a couple of dollars or whatever you want to do. It's entirely up to you. But if you just want to sit back and relax and enjoy the dulcet tones of my beautiful voice, then you can do that as well. It's absolutely fine either way. But yeah, so I want to talk about nice guys, because really, my content is, I mean, it's aimed at anybody, really. It's aimed at any guy who's interested in this stuff and wants to listen to me talking about it and whatever. But I suppose if I had to narrow it down to a specific audience, it would be those guys who fundamentally are kind of like nice guys, or fundamentally are quite also introverted, and often the things will go hand in hand. Quite introverted, a little bit socially inhibited, they and perhaps lacking in a certain degree of narcissism, because those are all things that I was when I was a younger guy. When I was 18, 19, 20, I was, as I've explained before, very low self-esteem, hated the way that I looked, hated the way that I came across socially, couldn't even create eye contact with people, certainly couldn't have eye contact with attractive girls. I used to fall into one-itis type situations with girls that I was attracted to who were in my class at college or whatever. And inevitably they would not be interested in me. And instead of going and looking elsewhere, going and maybe trying to interact with women who perhaps were a bit more potentially interested in me, I would just stay stuck on those ones that weren't. And so I get into these horrible, long friend-zoney type scenarios. And it was very, frankly, depressing. It was, I was very, very unhappy. I hated myself. I hated the way that I looked. I thought that I was ugly. I thought that I was unlovable. I thought that I would never achieve intimacy with a human female throughout the course of my life. And probably if sex dolls had been invented back then, maybe I would have been a customer. Who knows if I could have afforded them. I don't know what the technology was like back then. I suspect the sex dolls were pretty ropey. I believe, judging from MGTOW channels and so on, that the quality's got better now. Not something I've experienced myself. But anyway, the point is that back in the day, that was what I would have assumed would be the height of my experience. I certainly didn't think that I would be capable, or indeed would be worthy of, receiving physical love and affection and pleasure from another female human being. I just didn't think that it would happen. Okay, and so I got into a very negative spiral, as you can imagine, negative mindset. And had there been internet forums at that time, I probably would have banged on about it on those. Had there been a Reddit back then, I probably would have, been sort of pouring my heart out on that, or in the YouTube chat section of certain 8-hour late night live streams. I probably would have been crying into those as well. But very luckily, I didn't have to go down that route, because things changed significantly for me. And so coming back to my content, I suppose, in the main is pitched at are people who've come from a similar sort of background. People who've had that crushing sense of inadequacy, that crushing sense that they will never be good enough, that they will never measure up to what society deems to be worthy of attraction and worthy of sexual fulfillment. And I'm not saying that, every guy on the planet can maybe for some guys there are legitimate reasons why that is true. But in the main, I think for most guys who are sort of watching this content, most guys who I work with and deal with, they are pretty average guys. They're not horrendously ugly. They're not chads either. But they are, they are somewhere in the middle. And the message that I have for those guys, if you regard yourself as being one of those guys, but perhaps you feel bad about yourself, you feel very negative about your looks, you don't think that you can get traction, or you're not getting the kind of traction in dating that you would like, my message is that you can change that. You can fundamentally alter your life experience in this area. And I know that because I've done that myself. And the way that I am now is very different to how you would imagine I would have been if you'd have met me when I was 18 or 17 or whatever. Okay, so you can change, you can become a different person, and you can start to get different results socially. And of course, the main benefit here, the main focus here is on dating, and we talk about dating and attraction and those good things. But this also applies to your social life as well, and it applies to your work life, and it applies to if you're involved with, say, politics, or you're involved with anything really where you need to influence other people. The message is that you can change, you can improve, and you can get better results, as much as the naysayers might deny that. And I just dismiss the naysayers, because like that's just not my life experience and that's not my experience of the world. But in order to get into this topic about nice guys, what I want to do is discuss an article which appeared a few years ago on a website called Wealthy Gorilla. And the article is called "Are You a Nice Guy? 10 Signs This Could Be Destroying Your Success." And it's by a gentleman called Will Chow. So, "Are You a Nice Guy? 10 Signs This Could Be Destroying Your Success" by Will Chow. And I will link to that in the comments or below later on. But if you look it up, if you look up 10 reasons nice guy, gorilla wealth, then you will, or sorry, Wealthy Gorilla is the website, then you will see it. And he basically says, are you a nice guy? If you're curious about how much of an impact the nice guy trait has on your success, keep reading. Here are 10 signs that you're a nice guy and what to do about it in order to ensure your success. So what I thought we would do was to use this as a sort of a jumping off place, if you like. So we'll go through the 10 reasons that Will Chow lists here. Some of them I agree with, some of them maybe a bit less so, but we'll talk through them, and that will give us a sort of a jumping off place in terms of getting into this discussion. In the meantime, as always, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, stick them in the chat and we will get to them during the show. Okay, so the first nice guy tell that Mr. Chow, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, says here is, number one, nice guy or arsehole seems to be the only two options. Okay, so what he's talking about is that dichotomy, I suppose. You know, it's that polarity between, on the one hand, the really nice guy, and on the other hand, the complete hard-ass arsehole, okay? And the point that he's making is that nice guys think that it has to be a polarity, you know, that there's only two options, and you're going to be either one or the other, and there's nothing in between. And I have to say, as his first point on this topic, is that what I agree with? I don't know, really. I think I agree to the point that I think if you're like a classic nice guy, then there is probably a tendency, and I get this question a lot when I'm teaching on CAD Academy, and you know, in emails and stuff like that, and people do, because I wrote that book, which is called How to Be an Arsehole, which is sounds a little bit more combative than it actually is, but it's a book that explores the dark triad and differentiation, a lot of the things that I talk about now. My best-selling book actually is on Amazon. Check it out. But a lot of people will, when they're corresponding, they will say, well, it's all very well saying be an arsehole. It's all very well saying be the jerk, you know, learn those things to change the way that you come across in social situations. But I don't want to be an arsehole. You know, I don't want to be a terrible human being. I want to be, you know, I'm a nice guy and I'm kind of happy with being a nice guy. And the lesson to be taken from this, I think, is that you don't have to go from 0 to 120 miles an hour in 1 second, right? It's not about going from, I'm just this really nice, sweet, good-natured, doormat kind of dude, and then I'm going to change overnight and just become this horrendous, horrific kind of bad boy, Jeremy Meeks type, semi-criminal kind of character. I mean, it's not like that, okay? And certainly what I teach, and certainly what I recommend, is not anything like that at all. It's more just saying, look at your behaviors now. Look at how you're coming across. Look at how you're interacting with people, okay, on a day-to-day basis, in terms of dating, but also in terms of all areas of your life. And look at that, be honest with yourself about it, and then work out if there's a way that you can turn up the dial on some of your more dark triad type characteristics, on some of the things that are, you know, if you could turn up the dial a little bit on that bad boy kind of element to you. And like I say, you know, guys will always, because we like to take things to extremes, I think, generally. So it's always like, oh, so you're saying I've just got to go out there and just be rude to women and just be really cold and just, you know, only ever have one night stands and never see a girl again and never let her stay over and all this kind of stuff. And no, that's not the case at all. You know, I'm certainly not like that. That's certainly not the way that I've conducted my relationship since I've got into this space. But what I did learn to do and what was useful to me was to amplify to some degree the characteristics that were a little bit more assertive, a little bit more, well, this is how I want things to be, and a little bit less, I'm just going to be a doormat for this other person because I'm attracted to them and I want to try to influence their behavior. Because when you think about it, that's what it kind of comes down to, isn't it? The nice guy is acting in a certain way, he's acting in a nice way because he's secretly hoping that that's going to influence the behavior of the other party in his favor. And rightly, that is sometimes thought of as being manipulative. And indeed, point 2 that we have in this article is you give expecting to get something in return. And here, Will Chow quotes or refers rather to Robert Glover, who's the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And he talks about what Dr. Glover calls covert contracts. Now, this is something that Ryan Stone has been talking about. And actually, Ryan Stone did a complete breakdown on his channel of No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. So if you haven't seen that, then obviously I recommend going over and having a look at that at some point because Ryan is very, very good on this stuff. He can dissect these things in a very granular way. And to be honest, I've read No More Mr. Nice Guy, but I haven't read it for a while. So he will be looking at it with fresher eyes than me. But what he basically says is that Glover underlines this thing about covert contracts. Okay, so what a covert contract is basically you are doing something. Well, it says here, false belief systems about how the world works. Any gift that the nice guy gives isn't truly selfish. They come with an unstated expectation that it will be paid back. Okay, when it is not, which often isn't because the other party isn't aware of this contract, the nice guy becomes resentful or frustrated. Don't expect people to do things for you without having to ask just because you did the same for them. People have their own obligations. So the covert contract is kind of like, and the covert contract is kind of like, I'm being really, really nice to this girl that I know from my class or I know from work or from my university or whatever. And in my head or in my or secretly, I'm thinking, she's going to repay me for this. At some point, she's going to realize how amazingly nice I am, how fantastic I am. And then she's going to repay this. And she's going to repay this in a dating context. She's going to repay this by coming out on a date with me, making out with me, whatever. And that is a very bad way to operate. You're operating, firstly, from a position of weakness. Because when you think about it, you're going into that equation trying to do something for the girl, which hasn't even been requested, by the way, or in most cases it hasn't been requested. You're trying to do something for the girl in the hope or on the sort of unagreed expectation that she's going to reciprocate that. And that's just a really bad frame, regardless of how you look at it, because actually what you should be doing is going into the interaction with the frame of, I'm awesome, I'm fantastic, I deserve reciprocation just for being me. I don't have to do anything. I just have to rock up and be Troy Francis, and I should get reciprocation because I understand my worth as a man. I understand that I'm a fantastic and entertaining and very sexually attractive guy, and she's very lucky to get to hang out with me. Okay? So that's the frame that you should be coming in at it with. Now, I'm not saying those things are true, and I'm not saying she's necessarily going to buy into that frame, definitely. But that's how you should be thinking about yourself. And if you're going into a potential or you're going into an interaction with sort of like, oh, well, if I just clean her car every morning, then maybe she'll like me because of that, then you're attempting to sell yourself. And you shouldn't be doing that. But even aside from that, the truth of the matter is that these covert contracts, they're not real contracts, because they haven't been agreed by the other party. And what the classic nice guy will do, and I've done this myself, so I'm not I'm not exonerated from this. I've certainly done this in the past. I don't do it now, but I used to do it back in the day. What the nice guy will do is he will start behaving in a certain way around the girl. And it's just with that underlying expectation that she's going to reciprocate, and she's going to reciprocate in a sexual manner. And the worst manifestation of this that you get is when the you get a girl and a guy who've been friends for a while, and the guy's doing the nice guy thing. He's cleaning her car, he's carrying her books home from school, he's doing her homework, whatever it is, the cliche kind of stuff. And then one day she is in the cafe with him, and he goes to the bar, and he comes back, and the school jock is talking to her, and she ends up making out with the school jock in front of him. And then when the school jock goes, he gets really angry with her, and he says to her something like, "But I thought, Mary Jane, I thought that we had this thing." And she looks at him and she says, "What are you talking about? We're friends. What do you mean?" And that is a classic, very cliched, but that is a classic illustration of the dynamic of covert contracts, because the guy in his head thought that there was an arrangement here, and that arrangement was never there. Now, this is muddied a little bit, the waters are muddied a little bit by the fact, of course, that sometimes girls can take advantage of this dynamic a little bit, in the sense that, if Mary Jane likes having her homework done all the time, and likes having her books carried home, and, or her car fixed, or whatever it is, then she may well on some level be aware that the chode likes her and is attracted to her. But because she's getting the benefit of his chody behavior, his service, whatever he's doing for her, she chooses not to say anything. So yeah, sure, absolutely. Sometimes women can be at fault in this, but not all the time. Sometimes not. But nevertheless, you are the one who makes the decision to do the actions, okay? And you shouldn't be doing these actions, okay? Unless... I remember coming to this realization, I think in my late 20s, after a number of pretty disastrous relationships with girls, and sort of like either one-eye-to-see relationships or certainly quite one-sided relationships, where even if we were dating or sleeping together, it meant more to her than it did to me, and she was kind of stringing me along in some way. And I came to this realization that was very powerful at the time. It sounds obvious now I say it, but it was very powerful at the time, and that was, unless it's actually on, it's not on. And what I mean by that is that you can get stuck in a labyrinth of your own making, of hanging around with this woman, doing things for her, spending time with her, and you guys aren't actually dating. You're not actually having sex, you're not making out, you're not having intimacy, or maybe even you are doing some of those things, but it's not at the level that you want it to be, okay? And you are there thinking, but like next week, or when she finishes her exams, or when she gets that new job, or when she finishes this job, or when she moves city, or whatever, then we're going to be together, then it's all going to work out. And she's giving you the little signals, but she's not fully reciprocating emotionally or in the way that you want. Then you are, I'm afraid to say, my friends, kidding yourself, and you are doing yourself over, really. Because when it's on, okay? If she really wants you as a lover, or as a boyfriend, or as a serious partner, or, whatever it is that you are hoping to get out of this situation, then she's going to make it pretty damn easy. She's going to make it pretty damn obvious, okay? She's not going to mess around. She's not going to keep you in this grey area. She's not going to make you confused and sitting up at night, looking through her text messages, trying to work out what she meant by this or that phrase. She's going to make it obvious, right? And if she isn't, it's not on. That is to say that the relationship is not on in the way that you think it is. There is no covert contract. It doesn't exist. Okay, you're reading too much into it, and you shouldn't be doing that, And this is why when we teach game, or we teach dating dynamics, we teach guys, we advise guys to be direct, to be authentic to themselves, to their desires, to go in and make it pretty clear that I'm attracted to you, I would like to get to know you more. Can we move forward on that basis? And if she says no, or she's not interested, then you're like, okay, fine. And you go on your way, and that's it, okay? You have to avoid these grey areas of covert contracts, which only exist in your mind, okay? Very, very important, okay? Not only is this not going to do you any favours in terms of getting the girl, if you like, but it is also going to potentially can really screw you up mentally and emotionally as well, because the longer that you get caught in some sort of a grey area, the more it's going to mess your head, and there will be negative consequences as a result of that. Okay, so point number 3 in this article is you believe that if you're nice, everyone will love and desire you. Well, I think the important word there is desire, isn't it? Because yes, if you're nice, then there is, I suppose, a chance that a lot of people are going to like you. Probably not everybody. I don't believe that you can. I don't believe that there's any way that you can get everyone to love or like you. I think that there's always going to be some people who don't like you. I think that's just a constant for all human beings, you know. Sorry, actually, the word he uses is love. He says, you believe that if you're nice, everyone will love and desire you. So, again, it's another variant, isn't it, of the covert contract idea, in the sense that the nice guy, is being the nice guy because he thinks that he's going to get something from it. So his niceness is not authentic. His niceness is a ruse in order to get something back from the world. And that is not only ineffective, but it's also fundamentally dishonest as well. And I believe that is why it's not a good strategy. It's not a good way to live your life, you know? It's not a good way to be. I'm much more in favor of being direct with people. Again, in dating situations and in other situations as well. I'm much more in favor of being, and it's not always easy, but being very much more like, this is me, these are the things I want, this is what I will accept, this is what I won't accept, can we move forward on that basis? And then it's down to the other person to make a decision on that. Now, they might say no. They might say, no, that's not acceptable to me. I don't want to enter that kind of relationship with you. I'm not interested. I've got a boyfriend, you know, whatever it is. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. But your prerogative is that if things aren't going to go in the way that you want, then you can also disengage from the situation as well, okay? So don't fall into this trap of believing that if you're really nice, a really nice guy, everyone will love and desire you. In fact, actually, as we know, the opposite really is true, particularly in romantic sexual relationships. And this is what, oh, for God's sake, I'm never going to get this right. This is what we teach in CAD Academy, okay? Opens again on 1st of December for 5 days for you to enroll. We teach attitude. It's one of the tenets of the CAD system of dating, which is charisma, attitude, differentiation, and dating dynamics equals attraction. Okay, that is the system. That's the formula, if you like. And the attitude section of that is all about being the bad boy. It's being that bad boy archetype. Why? Because it's attractive, because it's kind of sexy. Okay, that's what you want to be. So actually, you know, we've all been lied to, really. Well, we kind of haven't been lied to in a way, because, you know, a lot of mainstream media actually does acknowledge this. Loads of movies, you know, loads of TV shows, rom-coms, all kinds of stuff. You know, it acknowledges this idea that the bad boy, that the not nice guy is attractive, is more attractive than the nice guy. But the only problem is what tends to happen with Hollywood movies and sitcoms and things, you know, rom-coms and things like this, is that at the last minute they'll flip it round because they have to sort of fall in line with the overarching societal narrative. So they'll show the bad boy being the one that actually gets chosen by the beautiful woman. But then at the end they'll flip it over, and then the nice guy is finally given his chance, and he's the one that rides off into the sunset with the woman, because that is the more societally acceptable version of the story. But of course, in reality, for the most part, it is actually the bad boy who rides off into the sunset, and the nice guy is left sitting there crying into his cornflakes, if you have those wherever you are. Okay, so point number 4, and by the way, we are taking these points from an article that was on Wealthy Gorilla by a guy called Will Chow. A guy called Will Chow. It appeared on Wealthy Gorilla, and it is 10 signs. Oh, you nice guy, 10 signs this could be destroying your success. Okay, so point number 4 is, you believe that if you do everything perfectly, it will be smooth sailing. Well, I mean, again, really another variant on this whole covert contracts thing, because it's this sort of belief that, oh, I just have to, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I will get Y. You know, if I do these things, I will get what I want out of life. And unfortunately, that's not really true. It doesn't really work like that. As I've said, it's often the bad boys that finish first and the nice guys that finish last. And that's the case in dating, but also in business, in politics, in all different kinds of things. So, but I think there's a deeper truth here as well. And this is something that I see time and time again across the sort of men's space online, if you like. You know, if you're looking for advice about dating, you know, that whole sphere. There are groups of men, often traditionalists, often, you know, conservative, kind of traditionalist type guys, and they appear to have a belief that if you just do everything right, that is to say, if you follow a script, if you follow the script that society's laid down, then you will get good things coming into your life. And this is why you get a bunch of dudes who are tradcons now, who have grown big beards and they wear plaid shirts and they have Instagram accounts where they've got pictures of them and their wife and their 17 kids, and they will talk about how amazing it is to just go and live in Montana and have a tractor and raise sons and be, you know, like the, I don't know, like the kind of like the helper at the Sunday school, or, you know, the head of the church committee or whatever. And if you just do all of these things, then everything will go right and you'll have an amazing life. And that is not the case. Or that's certainly not the case in a great many instances that I've seen and that I know people that I know personally have experienced. Okay? This idea that, and it's even worse. I mean, I'm giving the example there of a married dude, and that's one thing. But imagine a guy who is in his 20s and he's not married and he's looking for that high quality woman. And, you know, he's being told by people on Twitter, well, all you have to do is grow a beard and read the Bible and go to church every Sunday and, you know, wear a nice button-up shirt and etc., and you will find your high-quality woman. You know, she'll be sitting there in the church as you walk in, and the organ music's playing, and everyone's singing the hymns, and she'll turn around, and, you know, her beautiful blonde hair will be dappled with light from the stained glass windows, shining through the figure of Jesus, and she'll be carrying a bunch of flowers and some white bunny rabbits and a dove, and, you know, you guys will instantly fall in love, and it turns out she's a virgin, and you'll make sweet love, and then you'll get married and you'll be together forever and it'll all be perfect. And of course the reality is that hardly ever happens. I mean, it's a fantasy. It's not realistic in 2020. It's just not the way that things go down. And the reality is that girl that the tradcon is fantasizing about also has a very naughty side. She also has her own fantasies. You know, perhaps she's already been intimate with the local Chad. You know, perhaps she's already gone for the bad boy or the bad boys, and now she is, trying to atone for that. And I cast no aspersions here on women and anything like that. I'm a libertarian. I believe it's up to everybody to do what they want to do, as long as it's legal and you're not being a complete dick. But yeah, I mean, this fantasy that if you just do everything correctly, then you're somehow going to win the lottery of life is really, you're setting yourself up to get knocked down, I'm afraid. The old saying, every good deed gets punished, or no good deed goes unpunished. Well, it's kind of like that, isn't it? I mean, it's unfortunately, this is kind of how things go. And the guys who bang on Twitter and these sites about honor and nobility and integrity, and high quality women and all of that kind of stuff, those are the guys who are going to get dragged through the divorce courts in a few years' time, and then who are going to be crying about it on Reddit, because you are a mark if you set yourself up in that way. That is just the reality of it. I'm not saying in all cases. I'm not saying all women, blah blah blah. Disclaimer, but you know what I'm saying. You are setting yourself up as a mark, as a target, to get taken down. So don't make that mistake. Don't do that. You've got to be a little bit wise to the way that things go down in reality. And then point number 5. You avoid as much conflict as you can. And I think this is a very important one. The nice guy avoids conflict in all senses. And of course, this includes conflict with women, but it also includes conflict with other guys. The nice guy tries to make himself invisible. The nice guy tries to just sort of like float by and not cause any friction and not annoy anybody. And the strategy is that he hopes that everybody's going to like him as a result of that. And again, this is a very bad strategy. I mean, when you think about it just in terms of marketing, the content creators who are who get very popular, the content creators who get big audience and they're making a lot of money and all the rest of it. And those people, to be fair, a lot of the time tend to be pretty obnoxious. You get a lot of these dudes and they're kind of obnoxious. They're kind of irritating. They rub people up the wrong way. They get 8-hour live streams being made about them with people making allegations about them and, defaming them and posting fake pictures of them and things like this. These are the people that get attention. And with attention comes money. And with attention comes the other good things in life. If you are too nice, if you are too vanilla, then you may avoid some of the friction that life brings, but you will also avoid some of the great successes that you might otherwise have got as well. Okay, so trying to just sort of slide by, trying to be agreeable to everybody, trying to be like that kind of Ned Flanders off The Simpsons character is counterproductive in the end. And again, I come back to the same point that I made earlier, which is to say that you are not being authentic if you are living like that. You're not living your best life, man. No, but you're not really being yourself. Okay, you're being. Nice guys aren't really nice. They're doing it because they think they're going to get a result. They're not doing it because they want to be like that. They're doing it because they think that if they're like that, then something's going to happen which is going to be beneficial to them. And that's all it is. So you're not really being yourself. You're not really you're not living authentically. And as hippie-ish as it sounds, and all the rest of it, living authentically, I think, is important. Because the truth of the matter is, we're all going to be dead pretty soon. I mean, I certainly am. I probably won't make it to the end of the stream. I mean, we've got another 20, 40 minutes or so. Maybe I've only got half an hour left. I mean, when you get to my age, you've got to be a bit careful. Do you know what I mean? So I might actually conk out while we're doing this stream. And, it would have been great to have spent it with you guys. And I mean that sincerely. But the point is that life is very short. Okay. And so acting in a manner which is not authentic to you, pretending to be somebody else, is just a very bad strategy all round. Because, then you get to the end of your life and you look back and you've lived a life that has been half lived, okay? You can live a life that's been half lived because you've tried to placate other people, you've tried to be somebody else, you haven't been authentic, you haven't been your true self, and maybe you have slid through the cracks. Maybe you have had a pretty relatively easy time of it, but you haven't been yourself and you haven't done the things that you really could have done and that you probably really wanted to do. So it's a real tragedy, actually, when people do this, and this transcends getting good at dating and all this kind of stuff. This is about your life, man. This is about, like, who do you actually want to be? And the unfortunate fact is that some of the time you are going to rub people up the wrong way by being yourself, because a lot of the things that you want to do, the way that you want to be, maybe not everyone's going to like that. Maybe society's not going to approve. I've seen a couple of tweets actually on this subject recently. One of them, I'm not going to be able to find it actually, but one of them, the guy said something like, when you start saying what's really on your mind, society doesn't like that stuff. Something like that. And yeah, I mean, that's true, because often, and I'm not saying anything really nefarious or sinister or anything, but Mobile Gamer says, Troy, you're a nice guy. That's a horrendous insult, and I am tempted to ban you from the channel. Please never say that again. But yeah, I am a nice guy. I'm a really awesome guy. If anyone wants to come around for a cup of tea, let me know in the chat, and I will make a nice cup of tea for you down here in London town. Actually, no, that would be illegal, I think, unless you're in my bubble, which you're not. So, but after the lockdown, I'll make you a nice cup of tea. I forget what we were saying now, really. But yeah, you've got to be authentic. You've got to, because otherwise your life was wasted, and that is not a good thing. And to hell with meeting a high quality woman. What about your bloody life? That's the important thing. Number 6 is you seek external validation and approval. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty basic one, isn't it? It is, but it's important, and it can't really be overstated. You are living your life in a way that you hope will garner you the approval of other people, and in this context, that could be women. You're behaving in a manner that you hope is going to get you in the good graces of the women around you. And classic examples of this in dating are things like, well, I'm not going to go over and talk to her because she looks like she's in a bad mood. She's probably got a boyfriend. She's probably busy. She probably doesn't want to talk to me, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And so you think, well, I'm going to do the polite thing. I'm going to do the nice thing. And I'm going to sit back and not say anything because, I don't want to put her out. I don't want to annoy her. I don't want to, etc., etc., etc. But in doing that, and therefore failing to take action, you are kind of hoping really for external validation, or at least you're trying to avoid external censure, let's say, which kind of amounts to the same thing. So you've got to stop thinking about what other people think, and you've certainly got to stop being concerned with having other people approve of you, because like we were saying before, a lot of times when you are yourself, then you are not going to please everybody. It's just a fact. I mean, you'd be amazed doing this channel, this inoffensive, nice channel. I get lots of brickbats thrown at me by various different people, and well, what are you going to do? I mean, you going to stop? You going to roll over and die, or do you carry on? And at some point, you have to make that decision to say, well, listen, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be myself. And I'm going to put it out there, regardless of how it plays, regardless of the external validation that comes to me or not. And ultimately you have to not care about that stuff, because some people get no external validation at all. But if they're true to themselves, isn't that a better life lived than if not? Youre 94 says, how can a man who was once nice to a girl get her attracted again? I made that mistake. I was nice to her in 2004 and she's never forgiven me. I don't know. It depends on the circumstances, to be honest. I mean, you probably may need a gap. You probably need to disappear for a decent period of time. I would say at least 4 months, probably depending on the circumstances, 4 to 6 months minimum. And then you might re-engage and kind of test the waters. You need to do a hard reset, basically. You can't just, if you've been being really nice last week and she's been like, oh, this guy's a nice guy, I'm not into him. You can't then the following week turn that around. You're going to have to take the L and move away for a significant period of time and come back changed. Like if, for example, I don't know, say you're wearing really nice guy clothing, and then you have a style makeover. So say you're wearing like your beige chinos and your button-down shirt and all the rest of it, and you look like a really preppy, nice dude. And then you go away and you travel for 6 months and you meet different people and you have different experiences and blah, blah, blah. And you come back and you've got a couple of tattoos and maybe you've got a couple of rings and you're looking cool. Something like that. There's a reset occurs and she's like, oh, hang on a minute, this guy's different. But you need time and you need distance and ultimately you need to change a bit as a person as well to have any hope of coming back and turning things around with that girl. But to be honest, it may be that you've lost your chance. And but on the other side of it, it may be that once you've done that work, once you've grown, you've done that self-development, then you come back and you realize, actually, do you know what? I'm not actually particularly that bothered about initiating things with that girl again now anyway. I've moved on. So it's very hard once you've been put into that nice guy box. It's very hard really to sort of like turn that around, which is why we advise you, and this is a central tenet in the CAD dating system, not to present yourself like that in the first place. You need to have a bit more edge in the first place so that you avoid the problem at the front end. Okay, so hang on a sec. So what is the next point? All right, number 7. You have toxic shame you try to hide. This is an interesting one. He says, nice guys harbor deep insecurity or embarrassment. It could be anything from the religious implications of their behaviour. Well, we see that sometimes in this space, don't we? Or their insecurities with how they're different from others. Attempts to cover up this shame can play out in bizarre and unhelpful ways. All right, toxic shame. That's a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? That's a bit of a modern, slightly COD psychology type phrase. And I'm not even sure what it means in a tangible way. I thought that he was more talking about maybe childhood stuff or something like that, around fear of sexuality or whatever. I suppose he kind of alludes to that with the thing about religion. But one thing I don't know if I fully agree with that one or not, but one thing that I think I would say is that the nice guy tends to be uncomfortable with himself as a sexual being, as somebody who has desires and who has physicality. I was certainly like that when I was younger. I had that fear around that more charged aspect of my nature, or not fear, I suppose, is what it comes down to, but shame around it. And so the nice guy will try to keep that side of himself hidden. He'll try to keep that bit under wraps, because again, he won't want to offend anybody. He won't want to offend the girl that he's interacting with, whatever, And I'm not saying, obviously, disclaimer, I'm not saying be some sex crazed maniac. But you have to learn to let go of shame around things like sex and sexuality. You have to be willing to, in a consensual way, to show that is part of you, to show that is an element of your character, maybe a very strong element of your character, And you have to be willing and able to allow that to demonstrate itself in social interactions, and certainly date interactions and romantic interactions and things like this. I think shame can be a problem. And the thing about religion, that's not one that I really identify with personally, but I can understand how that can be an issue, and it's certainly something that I've heard other people talking about. And I think some of these things, if you are dealing with stuff, shame that's maybe come from childhood, shame that's maybe come from things that happened to you when you were younger, and so on, then it's really worth dealing with that stuff. And it might be that you need some outside help with dealing with that stuff. Certainly, there's a few guys that I've worked with who are very good on this stuff. There's a guy called Ryan Christensen, who is a hypnotist, who's really, really good in terms of working on this kind of stuff. He's been on Body Language Mastery. He's a very good guy, and he is really, really good at working with guys in order to help them to get through some of that shame, to get through some of that toxicity. Another guy is Ryan Fowler, who also does hypnosis, who also works guys through some of these underlying issues. And I've done some work with him in the summer. I can vouch for him. Really, really great guy. Really, really great process. So sometimes, and then there are other options as well. Obviously you can see a therapist, you can see a counselor, you can go into analysis or whatever. Sometimes you need to deal with those things. If you're finding it is blocking you in terms of your dating life, then while it's great to sort of learn techniques, and it's great to learn these different things that we offer here, sometimes you also need to look at the underlying issues as well. And I remember some years ago, I was carrying around a lot of toxic feelings from childhood, and I was in my 30s, and I was quite successful, and I was going out to fancy places in London, and I was meeting women and things like this. And it wasn't that I was getting no traction, but sometimes I would be standing in a bar having a conversation. It was meant to be a really light, kind of fun environment. And inside, I would be feeling this kind of like sadness, this kind of weight. And that doesn't do you any favors in an interaction, because like I say, it's meant to be light, it's meant to be fun, you're meant to be flirting, you're meant to be happy, you're meant to be sending good energy. And if your energy is negative, that's not going to play very well in that sort of dating scenario. So if you feel that you have those issues, by all means, look at ways to help to alleviate them alongside working on the dating stuff. It doesn't mean that you can't join Cat Academy. It doesn't mean that you can't watch This Contact. It doesn't mean that you can't go out and socialize and meet women and things like this. But ultimately, you will probably have to, and you probably be well advised to sort out the underlying stuff as well. But if anyone wants anything more on that, drop me an email, send me a message, whatever. I can put you in touch with people like two of the Ryans. So, what is the next point? Hang on a sec. Okay, right. Number 8. You have few or no friendships with other masculine men. Yeah. be friends with some masculine men. Um, yes, I think I can see how this one is an issue, and I would always counsel guys to have strong friendships with other guys. I think you need that. I think it's really, really important. Um, particularly if you are somebody who's living a kind of renegade bachelor lifestyle, where you're dating around. Maybe you're not in a long-term relationship. Maybe you're seeing different people and things like this. And emotionally, that can be up and down. I mean, that's how things go, right? So it's really, really important to have those friendships, to have a strong group of friends, and friends as well who can call you out on your BS, because there will be times when, frankly, you're talking nonsense about something or other, and you kind of need to have it pointed out to you in no uncertain terms. And listen, I mean, even if you're married as well, and I mean, we often hear about guys who are married and then their wife tries to stop them hanging out with the friends and things like that, and you need to resist that as much as you can. You want to retain those friendships, you want to retain those connections, because very, very important to be able to have that sounding board, to be able to have that kind of outlet, if you like, and that support. So yeah, I can certainly see how not having those friendships would be detrimental to you. I suppose what the author is saying here is, well, actually, he says here, nice guys often had an upbringing that affected their behaviour. Perhaps they were brought up in a modern city that didn't have a male rite of passage like tribes used to. All right, so this is going back to, and you hear a lot of this kind of stuff talked about in the space, don't you? This is sort of like, yeah, you got to get out to the forest and bond with other men, and those ritual initiations, and everyone get bare-chested and start wrestling each other and all that kind of stuff. You get in the more wacky sort of like extremes of this. I don't think you need to go that far, but I think, yes, fostering and nurturing male friendships with other guys is very, very important for many reasons. For many, many reasons. But it's just essential. It's just something that you need to do. And if you don't do it, then you are doing yourself a disservice. But I would say fundamentally, I think that the key thing really is having people who can rationally listen to what is going on for you and be able to reflect it back in a sane manner, okay? And there are guys out there who can do that, okay? So you got to also be careful about the friends that you're letting into your life. You don't want people who are flaky, you don't want people who are too all over the place. But a good, strong group of friends, 100%, man, you need to do it. Oho says, could you do another on Dark Tribe mating strategies? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely cover that again this month at some point. So, point number 9 on the list is you're scared to ask others for a favor without doing anything in return. So this, I think, is about sort of like really not thinking that you're worth anything. That's what it comes down to, right? It's like fundamentally thinking, I'm just not that important in other people's lives. I'm not I'm not that important in other people's lives. I'm not like worthy of favors from other people. And this actually in terms of dating comes through with women as well, because guys will be very reticent to ask the women in their lives, to do things for them. And I'll leave it to your imagination what I'm talking about, but to do various things, because they sort of feel like the very fact of her presence, I should be thankful for that, let alone me asking her to do this for me or to do that favor for me or this for, or whatever, right? And again, that is the wrong frame to be coming from. The frame that you should be coming from in all your relationships and interactions is that, I'm a worthwhile human being. I have a lot to offer. I have a lot to bring to this relationship, to this equation. And so therefore, I want to ask this of you. Um, it would be great if you could do this thing for me. And not necessarily offering every time something in return, because the very fact of your presence, the very fact of your existence should warrant that person wanting to do something for you because you're an amazing guy. Now, I'm not saying to be just a complete arsehole again and to never do anything in return for somebody else. That's not a good way to be either. But certainly, if you think that all of the time you have to be doing things for other people in order to get them to do something for you, then there's something wrong with your frame. There's something wrong with your self-perception, and you need to have a look at that, and you need to alter that in some way. And then the 10th point, and this is a good one. The 10th point is everything seems everything seems fine to others until you burst like a pressure cooker. And this is, again, the classic nice guy syndrome, isn't it? The guy, he's being really nice. He's taking the girl's dog out for walks. He's cleaning her car. He's doing her homework. He's painting her kitchen, whatever. And then suddenly she starts dating Chad McChadderson, who's like a bodybuilder at the local gym. And he goes crazy. And I've heard girls talking about this before. You know, the guy, it's suddenly it's the conversation. He's like, I saw this in a sitcom once, actually. I forget what it is. Maybe somebody will remember. But they played this out very well. You know, suddenly the guy's like, can I speak to you outside? And the girl's like, oh, Jesus, what is it this time? She's like, can I speak with you outside? And then they go outside. She's like, I thought we had something together. And now you're with that low-quality man from the local gymnasium. How could you do this, Sheila? How could you do this to me? I thought we had an arrangement together. You know, and all of that. And, of course, again, it was a covert contract. It never actually existed. You know? She's not doing anything wrong. It was your mistake. It was your misconception. It was your stupidity, really, in thinking that there was something more to this situation than was actually there. Okay? So don't do that. You know, don't do that. Don't, you know, and again, this is another good reason to have good male friends, because for a start, if you're going in this direction, you need somebody to tell you. And secondly, you need people that you can sound off with away from her. You know, you can't be getting into a situation where you're building up this resentment against her because she's not acting in the way that you want her to act. You know, that's very unhealthy, and it's frankly very bad behavior, you know? And what this comes down to is your fear of conflict, because if you were being more upfront initially about the things that you want and how you want things to go, then, you know, you would avoid this problem. And the fact that you're not doing that is what causes the problem. So if you are getting into those situations where you're building up and you're becoming enraged and you're exploding with anger and all of this kind of thing, then that is something you really seriously need to look at. And this is why nice guys get such a damn bad name with women, because of behavior like this. Because the women are thinking like, well, you know, I was just hanging out with this dude. I was kind of being friendly to him. And now all of a sudden he's going mental because I took some other guy's number at the bar. You know, and for goodness sake, nothing is going to make you more unattractive to her than doing that, than behaving in that manner. I mean, you know, you can rest assured if she wasn't attracted to you before, she's going to be even less attracted to you after you go nuts because of some perceived slight. So, you know, emotional control, really important. But emotional control is all about understanding reality, you know, and understanding reality is predicated on being very clear about what you want and what you don't want. So if you're interacting with a girl because actually you want to date her, but you're kind of going along with a friends thing because you think that, you know, maybe that's a good way to get into her good books, then that's a bad way to operate. You know, it's just a bad strategy. The best strategy is to be upfront and to say, listen, I've seen you. I really like you. I think you look cute. Like to get to know you more. Let's go out for drinks. And you're making it pretty clear. You're making it clear that you're asking her on a date. You know, you're making it clear that there is interest. There's male to female interest. And, you know, she may well reject you. She may well say, well, sorry, but I don't like that stupid white jacket you're wearing, all those sunglasses indoors. And so I reject you wholeheartedly. And if that happens, well, you have to take the L. You have to take it like a man. You have to take it on the chin. And just like, okay, fine. Have a nice life. I will see you later. But the good thing about that is that you haven't then gone into some terrible 3-month situation of horrible friend zoneness, you know? You have freed yourself up and you are able to go on and meet other people and have a good time. And so she. And so it's better for everybody, all right? You know, you're not kind of entering into some horrendous, like, covert contract that doesn't even really exist except in your mind. So I think out of these 10, I think I agree with most of them, actually. I think they're pretty good. Let's just recap the list. And this, by the way, as I said earlier, I'll link to this in the description below, but this is an article by Will Chow on a website called Wealthy Gorilla, and it's called Are You a Nice Guy? 10 Signs This Could Be Destroying Your Success. And we've gone through, in the last hour, the 10 signs that he identifies. But here's a recap of them. Number 1, nice guy or a-hole seem to be the only 2 options. So the nice guy thinks, well, I'm either going to be really nice or I have to be a complete a-hole. And there's nothing in between, which is false. Number 2 is that you, the nice guy, give expecting to get something in return. Bad frame, bad way to operate. Number 3, you believe that if you're nice, everyone will love and desire you. Not true. In fact, often the opposite is true, as we teach in CAD Academy when it comes out on December the 1st. You believe that if you do everything perfectly, it will be smooth sailing. Again, not the case. Doesn't work like that. You need to get real. You avoid conflict as much as you can. Point number 5, you avoid conflict as much as you can. You know, I'm not saying go around and start feuds with people, but sometimes you need to engage in conflict because that's just how life goes. And you need to be living authentically. And that means telling people what you want and sometimes having disagreements with them about it. Number 6, you seek external validation and approval. Well, don't do that. That's just very silly. You know, it doesn't really matter what other people think. We're all going to be dead soon anyway, so who cares? Number 7, you have toxic shame you try to hide. Well, if you do have some sort of toxicity that perhaps came from previous relationships or childhood or etc., you know, you need to get some help with that. So look for some help that seems to you to, you know, be appropriate and go for that. You have few or no friendships with other masculine men. Well, go and meet some masculine men somewhere. Yeah, you know, you've got to have friendships with other guys. It's very, very important. And number 9, you're scared to ask others for a favor without doing anything in return. You know, it's the covert conflict. It's the covert contract thing again, isn't it? You know, like stop thinking I've got to do something and then they're going to do this. You know, like your self-perception should be I am enough. I am good enough. I don't have to be this other person. I don't have to do things for people in order for them to want to do things for me. And number 10, everything seems fine to others until you burst like a pressure cooker. Yeah, you know, like you don't want to be getting into this terrible sort of cycle of resentment whereby you blow up like a crazy person. You know, that's very unhealthy. It's very, very bad. If you had a good circle of friends, male friends, you would be able to talk about those things with them. Hopefully they would tell you to stop being such an idiot and to modify your behavior, and you wouldn't get to that stage. You certainly don't want to be taking this out on girls, you know, who, to be honest, you know, and I'm not saying that girls always behave wonderfully because they don't, but to be honest, if you were upfront with her initially, then you probably wouldn't be in the situation where you're now blowing up and getting angry. Okay, so don't allow the situation to develop in the first place. Be upfront about what you want and who you are. Be authentic. It's better to be shot down for being authentic than it is to be rejected 9 months later for being a simp. You might as well save the time and go down in flames of glory, I was going to say. Okay, so look, it's now 17:43 in the UK. I'm going to have to go in a bit because I've got to go and do a call. I don't know if anyone's got any final questions or any sort of final observations or comments that they want to make, but do put that in the chat now. Otherwise, we will have to wrap up because I've got to go on and do a Zoom call and some other bits and pieces. But I hope you enjoyed this. I mean, the nice guy syndrome is serious. It is a pandemic, and it is something that we need to be very careful of and avoid falling into ourselves. I'm going to be going live on this channel every day, Monday to Friday, throughout the rest of November, at 11:30 a.m. EST. That's 4:30 p.m. UK time. Most days, I mean, I might change the time one day or the odd day, but for the most part, we go live at 11:30 a.m. EST. So we're going to be talking about various different topics, and I'm going to really be trailing CAD Academy, which is my course, Charisma and Dating Academy, which outlines and actually explains in great detail. Let me say outlines, explains in great detail, and teaches my system for dating, which is charisma plus attitude plus differentiation plus dating domination equals attraction. Okay, so it's CAD equals attraction. It's a very powerful system. It's a system that I've devised over the past 15 years. It's led me to great dating success and plenty of other guys that I have worked with as well. So that's what the course is all about. It takes you from chump to Chad in just a few weeks. It opens on the 1st of December for new enrollments. It's only open for a 5-day window, and then we'll be teaching live webinars in December. So there's all that to look forward to, but I'll be bringing you more information on that and really talking about some of the issues that come out of that, really, and some of the key learnings really from that course, because this is really important stuff. I mean, I went from being a nice guy, I went from being somebody who was very, very shy and very down on myself, self-hating really, and I managed to break out of that and become very effective socially and in dating, and if I can do it, then you can definitely do it, like there's no and you can do it a lot quicker than I did it as well, because it took me a long time to learn this stuff. Farhan says, can I have a free call advice on day game? Not really, because my time is quite limited. I do get quite a lot of people. I mean, if you want to drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. I can maybe answer a couple of questions over email. I probably can't really do a full call because the time's limited and it's not really fair on people who are paying for my time. Afro Surfer says, nice to see you back. Thank you. G. Hansher says, nice guys are procrastinating to avoid negative outcomes. Many thanks. And yes, I 100% agree. Hack says, L says, practically in the field, be less humble, helps mindset. You got this, bros. 100% man. Totally agree. Thank you for commenting. Shane says, this time is a lot better. Yeah, 100% man. I mean, like, I want to keep it to this time. I was just saying if on the odd day I need to move it later, maybe, but the real time for this show is 11:30 a.m. EST. Peter says, Peter Okwara says, method acting to remove nice guy syndrome. Yes, and that is a technique that I teach in CAD Academy. There's a whole section on that, on Stanislavski and the magic if. So yeah, that's something definitely that we'll be going into in more detail in the course, and maybe I'll do another video on it in the next couple of weeks. David says, can you expound on in-between area? Is it just a question of whether you keep a mental ledger or not for nice acts? No, I think that's a little bit anal, to be honest. I think that's taking it too far. But yes, I mean, I will expand further on the in-between area in future shows. It's just about turning up the dial a little bit on your bad boy attributes. It's not about sort of like keeping a ledger kind of thing. And then Eddie Daniels says, oh, thanks for the comment though, David, by the way. Eddie says, no simping or tricking. Give women opportunities to make an effort. 100%. Thanks for the comment, man. And he says, make the initial approach. Give her your contact. Give her your info to contact when she has time to hang out. Well, I mean, there's a debate on that. Personally, I prefer to get her contact details and then follow up with her. I see where you're coming from, but there's still that reticence with girls to like make that initial first move. What I would tend to do would be to get her contact details and then follow up with her. But then after that, if she then doesn't respond or she doesn't, make that follow up with me, then I would leave it, and then it's down to her to, to make that move if she wants to. And Dan says, hi. Hope you're well, sir. All right. Many thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this. It's been quite an interesting broadcast. I think, like those 10 things about nice guys, I think a lot of them hold good. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to be eradicating over the next few weeks on this show. And as I say, there's more help available on in CAD Academy as well, which opens in December for your enrollment. In the meantime, if you want some more free content from me, well, first of all, subscribe to this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Get on my free daily email list as well. The link is below in the comments and in the description. Get on that free daily email list because I send out an article every day, 100% free of charge, a little bit of advice or a technique or an anecdote or a tool or lots and lots of different stuff. And I will also be giving out details on CAD Academy, on the enrollment, and there will be special offers and discounts and sneak previews and things like that as well on email. So do join the email list. And beyond that, I will leave it for now. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time, and I'll see you again then.